Hey everyone, this is the first part in a series where we use mixed media techniques to alter a book box into a creepy piece of Halloween decor. The supplies I've used are listed in the video description and on my blog, where you can also find close-up images of the finished cover. I had over 3 hours of footage for this first part alone, so I've decided to split the project into separate sections, starting with the cover today. So here I have a book box measuring 8 by 10 inches, which I've coated with clear gesso to help paint a deer better. I've taken a sheet of 9 by 12 inch Canson watercolor paper to use as a base for the background. We're going to try a really fun technique for creating a creepy sky, which I discovered through AmyR over at Prairie Paper Ink here on YouTube. It was originally shared by Stacy Hutchinson on her blog Tattered Nest Designs, which I've linked along with Amy's channel in the description. I initially pulled out my largest circle mask but realized I wanted the moon to be huge, so I replaced it with the foil piece that's used to keep coffee cans airtight. You can use anything that's circular or cut a circle out of masking paper for this step. I'll be working with a few colors from the Dylusions line for the background. Here I have black marble and funky fuchsia, as well as the new Distress Halloween mica stains for 2023. Which I'm completely obsessed with. Ranger brought back the previous two collections this year as well, so it's a perfect time to get your hands on them before they're gone. I spray the background with the two Dylusions colors I picked out earlier, going around the page with black marble and then adding funky fuchsia to fill the gaps. I'll keep alternating between these two colors till I have most of the background covered. And then I'll bring in some cherry pie, also from Dylusions, to warm up the color in some areas. Now it looks like a hot mess at this stage, right? Trust the process and keep going. It will look totally different by the time we are done. I mist the whole background with clean water and tilt the spray box to help the inks move and bleed into each other. Then, bringing in phantom mist and ominous twilight mica stains, I spray these in a few spots. With these mica stains, you have to shake them up really well. I've sped that part up here, but it can take a few minutes of heavy shaking to get them ready. I'm just adding them here and there. You really don't need much because they're so pigmented and shimmery. I clean the nozzles to keep them from clogging, and then move the ink around a little more. Then I lift off the mask and drip some of the ink that pulled on it back onto the page. Now for the part that's pure magic. Spray the moon with water and let the edges bleed color back inward. You'll see the ink move and create little threads and veins on the moon, which is such a unique and cool effect. Now I spray more water and again tilt the box to help the ink move where I want it to go. I pick up some of the extra liquid with a paper towel, dabbing it around the moon to create some random splotches of color. I then add a little more water, give the whole piece a quick dry with my heat tool, and mop up more ink where I think it's too saturated. We're going to add some more shimmer with unraveled mica stain. Always shake the bottle till you can't see any mica settled on the bottom. Here I'm adding large splatters that blend into the damp background just a little. Now it's all dry, so let's take a moment to admire our work. You can really see all the shine and shimmer in this piece. I thought I had loads of Halloween dyes, but the only bats I could find were these ones in an old background dye by Fun Stamper's Journey, and a larger one from a Sizzix die set. Luckily they're all similar styles, so they work together. I die cut these multiple times from black cardstock and tested how they would look against our creepy moon. I like how that looks, but I think it needs more shimmer. I'll add more splatter with unraveled mica stain, this time using a small paintbrush for better control. Look at that! Isn't it just yummy? I'll set that aside to dry and move on. Here I'm cutting some black cardstock with a retired Tim Holtz die, but any spooky border die would work. like trees, graveyards, fences, tall grasses, or brambles. I cut this twice to get one long border. The negative pieces from this die look like little clouds, which gives me an idea for later. Taking the long border piece, I'll separate it from the rest using my scissors. Here's what that looks like. I also really like the large negative piece from this die, and we'll save that for something. I make sure I like how the die cut looks on the background, and then set it aside for later. Now I can trim the background piece down to fit the front cover of the book box, leaving about a ½ inch around the whole piece to frame it. I'll use my large Martha Stewart trimmer for this, since the background is too large to fit inside my guillotine trimmer. After that, I'll quickly check to see if I like the size and the way it's framed by the blank space on the front cover. I think that looks about right. I'll use a pair of scissors to rough up the edges and make the whole piece look older and more distressed. Then I bring in some sparkly holographic stars to add to the sky, and I've sped up the section so you don't have to watch me glue each itty-bitty star in place. Next, I'll die cut some vellum using these ghost dies from the Frightful Things die set by Tim Holtz. I like how the background shows through them, since vellum is translucent, and this adds an ethereal touch to the ghosts. Off camera, I also die cut another twisted edge border from vellum and roughly tore some strips of vellum to create creepy clouds. I tried gluing one down with wet glue. You can see where it lifted color from the background here. That won't really show later, but I'll use my Xyron sticker maker on all the vellum strips and smaller die cuts instead. Then burnish these down really well with a bone folder before peeling off the protective sheet. Now we can start adding the vellum pieces to the background. I added a couple of larger clouds and one small ghost in one corner, so it looks like it's flying off the edge of the page. I'll then add double-sided tape to the top edge of the vellum border die cut, burnish that down and peel off the backing. I'll lay this down near the bottom edge of the page and add a line of Distress Collage medium to glue down the remaining part. This will be covered up by the black border we add on top, so I wanted to use a strong glue here. Then I flip the page around and trim off any excess vellum that hangs off the sides. Next, we'll bring in the black twisted edge border, lay it in place, and add a pencil mark where we want to trim it. I'll also add a pencil mark on the back where it hangs off the edge. And using a pair of detailed scissors, I trim the branches that I marked earlier and bring in my guillotine paper trimmer to cut the border down a bit wider than the actual page. I could have just used scissors for this since it didn't need a perfect straight edge, but I didn't really figure that out at this stage. I want a raw edge at the bottom to match the distressing on the background, so I'll rip it with a ruler. Now see that little notch where I didn't line up the border die just right? I'll cover that up with my title later, so it doesn't really matter that it's imperfect at this stage. I'll now add double-sided tape to the bottom edge of this die cut and liquid glue to the rest before lining it up on top of the vellum die cut and adhering it down. Then I'll use tweezers to lift a few vellum pieces and bring them to the front, creating more of a tangled look in this foreground element. For some reason, this also makes me think of tendrils of fog coming through the trees, which only serves to add more atmosphere and spookiness to the background. I burnished the bottom edge with a bone folder and then ripped the edges of the border down to size. Time to bring the bats back in and add them to the background with liquid glue. While I do that, I'd like to encourage you to check out AmyR over at Prairie Paper Ink, since she's the one who inspired me to try out this technique. I also suggest you visit Stacy Hutchinson's blog, where she first shared the creepy sky technique. I've added links to Amy's channel and Stacy's blog below. They're both amazing creators, so go give them some love. With the bats in place, I will start peeling the remaining vellum ghosts off the backing and adding them around the moon. I want it to seem like they're rising out of the mist and flying off into the sky. Maybe they've been released from their graves by someone digging around. If you don't press your die cuts down too hard after placing them, they can be lifted again and moved around, which is what I'm doing here to adjust this ghostie's position a bit. I'll fiddle with these till I'm happy and then press them down really well so they stay where they are. Now I'll take some liquid glue on my finger and just dab the tiniest amount to any branches that aren't glued down. You can barely see the glue through the vellum doing it this way. I'll then add some of the die cut negatives that look like clouds, which I also ran through the Xyron sticker maker. I feel like the right edge needs a little something, so I took a leftover scrap from the black border, added it to this edge with liquid glue, and trimmed it down from the back. This looks like a branch coming in from the side, which also extends the scene off the page and lends more interest to it. I picked out some stickers from the Tim Holtz Curiosities Halloween sticker book and played around with where to put them on the background. These are from last year's release, but I believe the same stickers are available in the 2023 Halloween sticker book as well. I'll also use a label from the Halloween label stickers. This one here, Forsaken, reminds me of Wheel of Time, which is one of my favorite book series of all time. I then bring in a couple of paper scraps from my stash in pale brown colors that kind of remind me of old and decayed paper. I like how the label looks against this piece, so I'll trim it down and add some distressing by cutting notches and then rolling the edges with my fingers or a pair of fine-tipped tweezers. Now I'll add the label sticker to the distress panel, adding some liquid glue to make it really secure. Then I'll test the other piece of paper behind this one. I kind of like how it looks, but I'm not quite sure whether I'll use it. I set that aside for now and remove the word stickers from the background too. Then I bring in my Distress Oxide Black Soot ink pad and a blending brush. I'll brush some ink along the edges of the background, pulling it in a little more in each corner to add a touch of shading and depth. I'll also lightly go over the vellum and cardstock elements in the foreground to give them just a hint of shadow. Once that's done, I'll spritz my work surface with some water and use a microfiber cloth to clean up the ink. I will then add some ink to the word stickers with Antique Linen Distress Oxide and another blending brush. After that, I smush the ink pad on my craft mat, spritz it with water, and use a small paintbrush to spatter ink over all the stickers and the bottom edge of the background. I did the same to the title piece off screen, and now I'll add black splatter to all these pieces with the dilution spray we used earlier. When the ink is dry, I use Ranger's enamel accents in black to add a raised dot near each corner of the title piece, which mimics the look of rivets or studs and makes it look like a grungy old sign, I think. You could also use tiny brads or pearls to create the same effect. I actually have some that are the right size, but I haven't used my enamel accents in a long while, and I'm currently trying to use up some of my older supplies that just don't get enough love. Okay, I really like how that looks, so I'll set it aside to dry. After that's cured enough to handle, I'll work on finishing the background. I've laid out the word stickers so they tell a story. It goes something like this, from left to right. Sometime in the middle of the night, in the shadow of the trees, in these very woods, she quickly digs with her skeleton fingers. Maybe this character, known only as Forsaken, is the one who disturbed the ghosts with her digging? I don't quite know where her story is going yet, but I plan to create a diorama on the inside of the box, where we can expand on it further. Perhaps it will be a cabinet where she stashes her finds, or the interior of a room in her lair. If you're curious about where this ends up going, make sure you subscribe so you can be notified when I post the next video in the series. Anywho, we've glued down the stickers and titles, so the background is done. I'll set that aside for now and begin the remaining prep work for the front cover. I'll take some matte black acrylic paint, this is just a cheap brand of craft paint, and add this around all four edges of the front of the book box. I make sure to also cover the sides at this stage, rather than having to deal with it later. After the paint is dry, I'll bring in my Distress Crackle paint in clear rock candy, which is my absolute favorite, since it looks like a layer of sugar when it dries. I'll spread this around the edges of the front cover in a fairly thick layer. You don't need to worry about making this perfectly even, since a little variation in thickness will just make it look more creepy and distressed at the end. Set that aside to cure, and when it's ready, all that's left is to glue down the background panel to it. Here you can see that lovely crackle finish up close. I'm using Aleene's Turbo Tacky Glue for this part because it dries quite quickly and works really well with thicker papers as well as wood and MDF. I'll spread the glue on the back of the paper, place it on the cover, and press down for a few seconds till the glue grabs hold. Here I wanted to show you that I've glued some layers of tissue paper along the side to mimic the look of a leather spine. It's a very simple technique, just using watered down glue and crumpled up tissue, letting the paper wrinkle as you apply it. I have also coated the inside of the book box with black paint. I don't have that part recorded since I actually prepped this box for a different project a few years back and ended up not using it after all. Up next, we have some glamour shots. This was my first time trying the spooky moon and sky technique, and I absolutely loved it. If you enjoyed this tutorial, I'd really appreciate if you would hit the like button and leave a comment under the video. Please consider subscribing to my channel and turning on notifications for future uploads as well. Thanks for spending some time with me. I hope you have a great day, and until next time, be kind and stay creative.